Man, it's a lot of stuff that Mace and Usher know that they ain't telling about Diddy. There's a lot of stuff that they know. Can you imagine, bruh? Can you really imagine?
What you mean by Usher though?
Usher used to stay with Diddy too, when he was younger.
My brother right here from day one, we used to wake up and, damn, pause, but like, check this out. Back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the frosted flakes, you know what I'm saying, before pause was invented.
When Don Richards released receipts showing Usher at the same area as Diddy's Freakoffs, it turned out that he was not who we thought he was. Don asserts that he was the one with the "You are aware of the number of people who have come forward to claim that Diddy reportedly recorded the freaks?" As it happens, Usher was the cameraman the whole time. For years, people thought Usher was simply another name on the long list of people he allegedly took advantage of. But if what is now coming to light is true, we might have been wrong. The federal government may be looking into whether Usher was actually more involved in Diddy's questionable activities than originally thought, according to new rumors. Don's remarks further intensified the situation, so it's no longer just speculation. In addition, there are suspicions that he might have helped Diddy recruit or develop other young men. Now, people are giving Usher the assumption that he was more involved than he revealed, and he might have to deal with serious legal drama of his own if these investigations prove to be effective. You guys, the mess outside is getting pretty. Now let's unpack it. Things have not been going well for Diddy since his trial started. From Cassie's testimony that started it all to Don Richards' exposing of Usher, it's all a disaster. However, Usher's supporters are truly astonished by the possibility that he could be the subject of a federal probe. He may not have been personally involved in the madness, but for a long time, he was believed to be one of the people entangled in Daddy's web. Because of all the talk over the years about Diddy's odd and inappropriate behavior around young boys, most people concluded that Usher was one of the persons who had been taken advantage of. He was only 13 when he moved in with Diddy. However, people are completely shocked by this new perspective. The whole situation is being flipped on its head. Usher hasn't said anything about what happened between him and Diddy's previous who. Could blame Diddy anyhow, given prior claims that he has intimidated others into silence? You're talking about a man who supposedly set off Kid Kai's car to send a message, and Cudi attested to it. Now, consider the harm Diddy might have caused to someone who lacked that degree of security or notoriety if he had the gall to pose as Kid Cudi. It makes sense why folks didn't say anything. But here's the crazy part. Rumor has it that Diddy's alleged infatuation with young boys has been known to the federal government for years. This isn't exactly a new investigation. They have allegedly been looking into him since. Some leaked evidence that came to light a few months ago claims that the feds have been covertly building a case for over a decade. A court document from 2013 claims that federal investigators debriefed James Roseman, the music manager who subsequently became Kingpin. Shady Combs was questioned in a U.S. District Court document about entertainment preferences and whether or not he was having intimate ties with the young lads. But there's a lot more where it came from, so things became messier. A leaked excerpt from Kim's allegedly incomplete biography claims that Diddy was not just close to Usher, but also personally acquainted with him. Additionally, she said that Diddy allegedly provided Usher the scorching tea, a publisher who was working on Kim's novel. The message asserts that Kim's book covered a lot of ground, including identifying identities and recording video of Diddy's encounters, including instances of sexually transmitted infections, and even a rupture between Usher's mother and Diddy's. You know, this was also supported by a blind item that went viral.
Cassie had evidence that Kim Porter gave her. So what was in Kim's book? You want to hear it? Here it go. Now, I cannot confirm or deny what's in this book, but ain't nobody fit Natasha K. me. So in this book, it detailed his relationships with men, footage of those encounters. It had the names of the men he slept with, a disease, allegedly Diddy giving Usher a disease.
Given all that has come to light, it makes sense why Usher was initially seen as a victim. People truly felt sorry for him, and the whole situation seemed terrible. But the revelation of the receipts and Diddy's alleged confession raises the possibility that the federal government is looking at Usher as a possible participant rather than just a victim. Despite all of the questionable activities Diddy allegedly exposed Usher to, there are rumors that he may have chosen to overlook what was happening around him. This development is scarcely surprising. Diddy's former security guard, Gene Deal, was one of the first to suggest that Usher is definitely more informed than he is disclosing.
Man, it's a lot of stuff that Mace and Usher know that they ain't telling about Diddy. There's a lot of stuff that they know. Can you imagine, bruh? Can you really imagine?
What you mean by Usher, though?
Usher used to stay with Diddy, too, when he was young.
Rumor has it that Usher had a key role in Diddy's attempt to contact Justin Bieber, so if you already thought his condition was bizarre, get ready. Jack Barright disclosed some startling details in a recent interview, claiming that Usher was present when the questionable acts occurred and allegedly offered Justin to Diddy.
He'd been trying to get to Bieber for a minute, and his management was backing him off. But it wasn't until Usher took over management and had guardianship and gave temporary guardianship to the Diddy for 48 hours. Think about that. He'd already been to the hospital. That situation that Gene was talking about. And you still took Bieber there. But you got custody of him first. Diddy had already tried. They wouldn't let him. Actually, someone made reference to the fact that Diddy trying to get at Bieber the way he was trying to get at Bieber was looking a little predatory. And then Usher came in and discovered it and managed him and got custody of him and promised to look after him. And then he sent him.
Dawn Richards' appearance on the stand throughout the trial made matters worse. She asserts that one of the main reasons the group broke up was because Diddy forced Danny Dane's females to take off. According to her, Usher attended these scoffs. He was also allegedly the one behind the camera, recording all of the bizarre happenings at the gathering. Dawn Richards sued Diddy last year, exposing him for some pretty terrible stuff, in case you missed it. In the lawsuit, she claimed that Diddy regularly used derogatory language toward her and the other members of her group, Danny Dane. During auditions, Mr. Combs spoke to the female contestants in a hostile, condescending manner, making disparaging and gender-based remarks, like calling them fat, ugly bees, and 304s, she wrote. Miss Richard was frightened and intimidated by Mr. Holmes's blatant disdain for young women like herself, who wanted to be on his show. She said, as soon as the ban was put into effect, Mr. Combs' contempt for women was evident as he continued behaving antagonistically with Miss Richard, and her female bandmates joined in. The physical characteristics of the five ladies were regularly criticized by Mr. Combs, who referred to them as bees and hoes. Mr. Combs, for example, claimed that Miss Richard was too thin and that her face needed to be repaired. Diddy would force them to practice for so long that they started to feel tortured since they were never allowed to take breaks, she added. She stated, Mr. Combs denied Miss Richard and her bandmates, Danny Kane, basic necessities like enough, food and sleep during making the band 3 and 4. When Miss Richard and her Danny Kane colleagues asked for food or rest, Mr. Combs refused, reprimanding them with statements such as, "You bees don't want this," or "You aren't hungry enough, and I'm paying you bees to work." This humiliating conduct gradually undermined Miss Richard's self-esteem and significantly increased her growing feelings of unease and worry about Mr. Combs's reprisal. In another, she continued by stating, upon information and belief, Mr. Combs would regularly be awake for prolonged periods of time because he was high on drugs. During these periods, Miss Richard and her bandmates, Danny Kane, were often forced to record and practice for 36 to 48 hours without breaks due to Mr. Combs's demands for continuous access, which left them with little choice but to pick between eating and sleeping. I'm I'm fairly certain that Miss Richards' weight loss of approximately 100 pounds is a violation of almost all labor rules. But Diddy had totalitarian control over everything. She further said that Diddy would allegedly host parties for young women in his studio while he gave out illegal narcotics like candy, and in his case, he brought up precisely that, Little Rod. As a result, it no longer seems to be an entirely baseless charge. The accounts seem consistent, which is discouraging. Dom was the first to bring up Diddy's former partners as well as Kim and Cassie Venture, unlike many others who have filed cases. Porter and the disturbing things she claims to have witnessed in Danny Kane. She remembered that she had first met Cassie on the day Diddy did it. Dawn says Diddy singled her out and threatened her with his authority as soon as he forced Cassie to end her relationship with her fiancé so she could begin seeing him. Dawn clarified that the first day was when the control started. Miss Richard was present when Cassandra and Mr. Combs were introduced. The court complaint states, the first appearance of Cassie Venture occurred in or around 2006. Mr. Combs's behavior changed significantly when he first encountered Miss Ventura. He stood squarely in front of her fragrance, intruding on her personal space, and stared at her without letting her see anyone else in the room, not even Ryan Leslie, the music producer who was then Miss Ventura's boyfriend. It continued by stating, Mr. Combs's frightening, predatory behavior during their first time off camera left Miss Richard feeling extremely uneasy and terrified of him. Then, Miss Venturi. Even if Cassie's complaint and witness evidence during the trial were already unpleasant, it's clear that she may have concealed certain information, which raises questions about how much worse things were behind the scenes. After Dawn broke up with Mr. Leslie, she began seeing Mr. Combs, who had affections for her. But Dawn didn't end there. She also talked candidly about some of the alleged violent episodes that Diddy caused Cassie to go through. Dawn said, Miss Richard and Mr. Harper showed up at Mr. Combs's house on the first day of recording and waited in the kitchen while Miss Venture, Mr. Combs's girlfriend, was frying eggs for him. When Mr. Holmes came downstairs, Miss Richard observed him come up to Miss Vento in the kitchen, looking quite happy, and shout, I've been asking you for my dish. I can't stand it when you don't do things right. Mr. Combs pushed Miss Vento against the wall, strangled her, and then threw the hot pan of eggs at her, causing her to fall to the ground in a fetal position. Mr. Combs, paralyzed with astonishment and terror, carried Miss Ventura up the stairs while she screamed and cursed. Miss Richard heard smashing, crashing, and glass breaking as Mr. Holmes dragged Miss Ventura up the stairs. Furthermore, when Dawn tried to intervene, Diddy threatened to kill her, saying things like, You all be. Don't get in my relationship. Don't tell my baby. Miss Vento, stop talking and make my money. I ruin the careers of artists. She ought to be doing that. You might today. You know, it sounds like Diddy was a threat on par with the Avengers. Move out of the way, Thanos. She did, however, add that Diddy abused Cassie for entertainment. Mr. Combs's violent temper frequently manifested as physical aggression. Cell phones, laptops, food, and studio equipment were among the many items Mr. Combs would routinely hurl at people or across the room during his outbursts. Miss Richard kept seeing Mr. Combs' aggressive girlfriend, Miss Cassandra Cassie Ventura. He continued to torture and strangle Miss Vento, striking her with his hands, throwing things at her, including a hot pan, punching her, and striking her with items. She further said that Diddy regularly touched Cassie in front of Usher and other industry heavyweights. Miss Richard and Miss Harper were obliged to attend a dinner that Columns hosted at a restaurant in West Hollywood, California, she wrote. Mr. Levine was one of the guests at the dinner, along with celebs Neo and Usher. According to her, Usher allegedly saw Diddy repeatedly touch Cassie, but he never took action or spoke up. During the dinner, Miss Ventura and Mr. Combs got into a fight. While Mr. Combs remained and carried on chatting with the dinner guests, Miss Clark, who was crying, took Miss Ventura out of the restaurant. But she also said that Usher remained silent when he saw Diddy touching Kim Porter. Miss Ventura doubled, over in obvious anguish as Mr. Combs punched her in the stomach and yelled at her in a shrieking whisper, She only wrote one song, in or around 2005, for the first season of making the band 3. Richard misobserved Kim Porter, Mr. Combs' ex-partner and mother of his 3 children, leaving his music studio in tears, clearly injured, including with a cut lip. I guess it's not all that shocking that Usher could have been Combs in these freak-offs, given all of this knowledge. After all, even when things went too strange, we already knew that Usher enjoyed himself at Diddy's parties. When Miss Richard discovered that Mr. Combs was capable of performing acts against women, she became extremely worried and terrified that Mr. Holmes might one day hurt her physically. We have to wonder if anyone in Diddy's group is innocent now that things are beginning to look suspicious. Anyway, I was curious about your thoughts on this. Do you believe the Usher was a victim or an accomplice? After seeing the video below, share your thoughts in the comments section.